Oh, oh, here we go. Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host, and I have a secret: how to fight CPS and win. I want to welcome you all to this live podcast from Southern California. Um, this is a podcast about people that are having problems or issues with CPS, and I'm here to try to help you. I've been involved in CPS for 14 years, three of them when they took away and kidnapped my children. Yeah, that's right. They are trafficking your children out there, all for money. That's the experience that I had with my case and all the other hundred and some people I've talked to in each of the different states of our country. Um, we have someone already text in a comment, Julia Mara, if you're still there. She came on at 7:42 Pacific time, but my show didn't start to 10. She says she's a new member. And Juliana, if you're listening to me, that would be great. Um, I'd like to know what city and state you're from, so I get an idea where people that are having problems there. Now, this podcast is interactive, meaning that you can do various things with this podcast. One, you can write in comments about your CPS case. All I ask is you tell me the city and state you're from, and then from there we can go ahead and try to help you out. I'm not an attorney, but I'm a loving man with a lot of history and a lot of things I could share with you that could make your life a little bit better because CPS is very uncomfortable. So please text in your comments. Also, you can give thumbs up, and love, and that's great too. I love the emotes, but I want this podcast to be your podcast, meaning that I want you to interact with it. Now, we had a guest this morning from Fresno, California, but apparently they're not here. From time to time, I do have guests scheduled to talk on the show, and for various reasons, they may have dropped out. Now, if you want to be on my show, another way to interact with this podcast is that I'm going to give you my number to call me. Um, Let me see if I can get it here. Oh boy, pulled up the wrong. Let me go ahead and put that on there. Here we go. If you want to call in right now and speak live on the show as a guest, you won't have a picture of you, but you can speak as a guest on the show. Um, Meaning that as a guest on the show, you can talk about your case. You have a full hour, actually a little less, and we've already gone 4 minutes. But I can talk for an hour here on the show. All you do is call in 626-698-0990. That's my office number. That office number can be answered between, the beginning of my show to the end of my show. But it's not respondable after hours. I do get you calls, but I can only answer you during my show. Now, my shows typically are 7 days a week, every day of the week, twice a day. One at 7 o'clock in the morning, one at 10 o'clock in the morning for an hour Pacific Standard Time, and the other one at 7 o'clock at night for an hour to 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That's what I'm on. That's why I talk about CPS and the reality of CPS. What CPS stands for and what they do are two different things. Now, that number you call in, I can put you on. 626-698-0990. If you don't want to talk at this moment, I can understand. This is hard to go face to face with a terrible agency. You can schedule a time by emailing my producer, Grace at gracevincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. It's ticketed on the bottom of my screen. Adjust the screen up a little bit. And that's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. Now, if you don't want to email and you'd like to call in and schedule a time, my office number is 888-888-6582. That gets you to my office. All I ask is to when you call in, to say that Bob Pace sent you and that you want to schedule one of my 14 shows, morning or evening, Monday through Sunday. So you pick the date and you pick the show. And that's another way you can arrange yourself to be a guest. And I love to have guests on here because it makes the show more user friendly, meaning that having you on the show adds a lot, because what you're doing could help out others. And that's why I'm on the show. I'm here primarily to help out others. I want to, hopefully give you suggestions that help your case become a little bit bearable, because it's going to be a horrible, horrible mess that you're in. And that leads me into my first rule number 1. And that is to get an attorney. Now, you're probably saying, why do you need an attorney? Well, the CPS things have been really, really a nightmare. You're going to find it a web of deception, dishonesty, not transparent lies, because CPS is not what you think they should be, and they're not what they're supposed to be. Now, for you, some of you haven't guessed what CPS is, it stands for Child Protection Services. It's a branch of social services that the federal government created to help out families in need, to help out people in need. Not only does it, protect our children, it's supposed to give us food assistance, Medicaid assistance based on our income, and help you find a job, housing, clothing, other resources that can help the family. It's the branch of social services. CPS, Child Protection Services, maybe have other acronyms in other states, but it's certainly not um, um, not changed, because it seems like there's a pattern. And the pattern that I notice is that over 100 people I've talked to, and including myself, the pattern is they want to do to take our children. It's like child trafficking, but they do it legally. They want to get the case open so they can start collecting money, and the federal government has given way too much money. There's no accountability for them. And I'll talk about it in a few minutes, but I want to go back to rule number 1. If you're having open heart surgery, that's a real dangerous surgery, open heart, because you're going into the body and you're going through a complex maze of veins and bones and body parts, and you're going to have experience and knowledge of how to navigate through the body to the heart to repair the heart. Well, that's the same thing that CPS is. It's a maze. You remember the story of Alice in Wonderland? Well, she falls in the hole. It's a rabbit hole. And she goes through a maze of different things. It's very hard for her to navigate around. And, the whole story is very hard on Alice. Well, the same thing is true about open heart surgery. You need a professional doctor, a doctor that's gone to school, that's learned medical, and that has gone through an internship and a residency before they really become a good doctor. Plus, they have years before they'll do anything critical. They don't do it right off the bat. Well, that's what you need in CPS. You need an attorney, a lawyer or attorney that has a background in dependency courts, dependency law, family law, juvenile courts, and family courts. So you need an attorney that can navigate through CPS and get your kids back to fight CPS, to make it so that your family can resume at some normalcy. And I'm sorry that you're in this case, because there's no rhyme or reason why it is, but this agency is supposed to protect our children from neglect and abuse and do family to bring the family back together. That is the goal. That's what they're supposed to do. So without an attorney, you're going to be helpless like I was. I tried to fight them myself. And I'm educated. I know how to write and talk to people, get things accomplished. But I had a real hard time convincing them or getting help from the agency. They're not user friendly. They're not even nice. I mean, I don't know how else to describe them, as a bunch of lost souls with no one at the helm steering the ship. And all they do is month after month collect $20,000 plus for each child that the case is opened in. So that is a lot of money, more money than it needs to take care of them. So with this, we have a law firm that produces this podcast. It's Vincent W. Davis and Associates. It consists of various lawyers in legal fields that can help you. The field you want is dependency law, dependency court. And we have just the attorney for you. It's Vincent W. Davis. He is a licensed professional attorney that has gone through school and passed the bar exam and has experience of fighting CPS and getting kids back and also suing CPS. He's a trial attorney. And the reason why I'm mentioning him right now is because he'll offer a consultation with you for 30 minutes. And it's only $49.99. That's a consultation with Mr. Davis. And you can talk to him because he'll go over the strategies of how to fight CPS, how to navigate through CPS, and how to get your children back. It's very important that you have this meeting because you're getting into a realm of an agency that lies and cheats and will not give your kids back. They want to take your kids. They want to do what is called child trafficking, but they do it legal through their foster care program. Now, this attorney, when you meet with Mr. Davis, make sure you tell them that I sent you. You need to tell Mr. Davis that. Also, when you call in, you tell the people they answered that Bob Pace sent you and you want to schedule a consultation with Mr. Davis. The number is 888-888-6582. That's 888-888-6582. It's on the screen. I have two phone numbers posted on the screen. So it's really important that you get that time with Mr. Davis because it'll help you by talking to him. And if you like what he has to say, he can defend you. You just work out the retainer. And the retainer is based on the complexity of your case, how long the case has been going on, where it's located. Is it in Southern California, Northern California, or one of the 50 states? He'll practice dependency law any state, Northern or Southern California. He's familiar and he has won CPS lawsuits. He has sued CPS and won them. So, and by the way, those lawsuits can only be done after your case is closed. And there's two kinds of lawsuits. One you could do within the state, and one that is due with the federal. It's your constitutional rights that get violated all the time. Also, your civil rights get violated all the time. You have two things: your constitutional rights and your civil rights. So it's very important that um, you keep in the back of your mind what you plan to do with your case. That leads me into rule number 2. You need to take notes. You need to take notes of what's going on around you and things like that. And you need to have a notebook. And anything that's related to CPS case, you need to write everything in there. Everything. If you find out some information, or you have to look up a public code, or you have to look up a particular motion or a piece, that should be in there. You want to list the date and time of this incident, whatever it is. And you want to say the people involved. Maybe it's just yourself, or you and the social workers, or you and your children, or whatever it is, the police, whatever. You list those people. Then after that, you write down what occurred. What occurred, you know? And so you want to write that down there too. So you want to write now, what it occurred. And so then you want to put the outcome. There's a couple parts to it: the date and time, the people involved, what happened, and what transpired, the outcome. The outcome may not come right away. You may have to work on that for weeks or days at a time. So that is rule number 2. Rule number 1 is get an attorney, get a lawyer. Rule number 2 is start taking notes. Now, rule number 3 is that you do not want to talk to social workers or policemen. You will end up getting yourself further in the hole. Now, you need to be courteous to the policemen or the social workers or anybody else that tries to be involved. And you should learn how to do what's called yes, no answers. You don't have to give explanations or anything. If they ask you a question, it might be a dumb question: are you abusing your children? You say no, but you don't go in there and start telling, well, my child was hurt physically and blah, blah, blah. You just say no. And, if they say they want to come in your home, you say no. You definitely say no. No one is to come in your home. It's your castle. Why? Because there's things in your home that get you into trouble, further trouble. The social workers will see it and use it against you. The police will see it and use it against you. You may have prescription drugs hanging out. That has to be locked up and put away. You may have firearms hanging out. They need to be locked up and put away. Your house may have done a dive and needs to be cleaned. So whatever you do, do not let them in your home, because you're opening up a whole can of worms and they will use it against you. So that goes for the policeman as well as the social worker. I mean, you pull over if a policeman is properly identified, ask you to pull over with his car and lights. You don't say anything to him. You put your hands on the steering wheel. Look straight ahead. As a policeman, you can say, "Good day, officer. How can I help you?" That's one greeting you can say. That's about it. And he'll say, "Did you know that you didn't stop at the stop sign?" And you could say either no, and I would say no because you want to be not guilty. And then you wait. And if he asks you some more questions, you can say no, no, no. And if he starts being persistent, you said, "I'll have my attorney contact you." And so then he'll give you a ticket. You sign up. It works a little bit different in CPS cases. They are going to try to get in your home. They want to do a home inspection. Because why? They have allegations. And these allegations are made by professionals and lay people. Now, professionals are like your school teachers, your doctors, nurses, counselors, policemen, firemen, so forth. Anybody that works with children, that is involved with children, is required by law to report abuse or neglect. If they see neglect or abuse of a child, they're supposed to report it. If they see a black eye or burnt fingers, they're going to report it. If a doctor tests you and you test positive for illegal drugs, they're going to report it. So it's very important that that you do not say too much to them and get the session over, because an easy way to end discussions with a peace officer or a CPS social worker is to say, my attorney will get in touch with you. Could you give me your card or your name and your phone number? You know, also social workers have an identification card. If they don't show it to you, you don't have to talk to them at all. They have identification card, an ID that tells who they are. Same thing with a policeman. And again, all policemen and social workers have business cards. So what you want to do, and I'm sorry you got to be this way, but the police departments are corrupt, not in certain degrees to others, and the CPS departments are corrupt. The social workers are corrupt. With that being said, you're going to run the risk of getting yourself further in a hole and your children being removed. Now, I said you say no to policemen, no to social workers, no to entrance into your home. And last one is no, do not take my children. They cannot take your children. The other day, a parent was on here and said they tricked me. They said my landlord was watching my kids while I was gone, and the landlord ended up calling CPS and turning their kids into them, and they legally took their child. Illegally. That violated the constitutional right. They have to have a warrant, a court order warrant. That means they went to court and asked the judge, we suspect this is a CPS abuse problem with the child. We want to remove the child from the home. This is the child's name, the date of birth, and this is the home location. They have that properly executed by the judge, and the judges don't work on the weekend. A lot of times they try to use paperwork that isn't validated. So you need to read it, you need to look at it, see if it's signed by a judge. Then they can remove your child. Also, they can enter your home with a court warrant, but they still can't make you talk. You have a right to representation by an attorney, by a lawyer. Okay, Foxy just texted me. Oh, yay. Okay, we have some people now. I just got full custody. Yay. I'm so happy you got full custody. Yay. That is great. What city and state are you texting from? Now, Faye, in Kentucky, I remember, Faye, you were on my show last night talking. And if you deny entry, the social worker will go to ex parte order to come back with the police to force to take your kids. Yes, that is what a warrant is, ex parte order. They have to go to court. Meanwhile, you take your kids, you go to your attorney's house and hang out there. That's a little difficult. Yeah, they removed your kids without no warrant or court order. Well, you could say no, and they can't do it unless they have the documentation. And if they leave, then what you can do is you can go to your attorney's place of business and sit there with your kids and let your attorney fight with it there. I'm glad to have you back, Faye. That was a nice experience last night when you talked to my show. You're from Richmond, Kentucky, if I can remember correctly. And you added a lot to the show. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm glad that you got um, your kids back. Yeah. Thank you for telling me. You got full custody. I'm so happy. And so we have people on my show this morning. I've been coming and getting a following, which is nice because I try to do my shows differently and try to do everything as best as I can there. So you're going to find these social workers will use trickery. They will cheat. The reason why they get the police involved because policemen are intimidated. They come there with their combat gear and their combat boots, and they look like they're ready to take you to prison. So it's called intimidations, and CPS uses that. They're tricksters. They're tricksters. They they child traffic our children. Child traffic techniques. They take our children. That's called child trafficking. Now, we have illegal child trafficking where I live. It's the number one spot for child trafficking. And I'm not saying all from CPS, but from criminal matters where they're put in container ships because I live near the port of Long Beach and the port of LA. And they have container ships and they put people in container ships for the cruise to China, wherever they go. And they're put into as servants in rich people's homes and then also into prostitution gangs. And that's where they take away their passports or any ID and they're stuck. There's horror stories. Well, CPS is a horror story. They talk about horror stories with children. I agree there are, but CPS is a horror story. They are doing child trafficking. And do not give your child up. Do not give your child up. Faye says the police told me they would drag me out of the house, handcuffed, if I to stop them from putting. Well, what you would have done if they dropped you out of the house and didn't have a court order, and they dragged you out of the house in handcuffs, they've violated the 14th Amendment, your constitutional rights. You have a right to be addressed with charges and a chance to go to court to fight them. You have the right to do that. They can arrest you. They can serve you, if it depends on what the severity of the crime. But for CPS, that's going overboard. Now, it depends on the veracity of the crime. If a child, for instance, here's a case right now that will probably make you all feel really sick to your stomach, but I should share it with you. There was in Ohio a mother who decided to take a vacation, first to Chicago, then to the Puerto Rico, and she left her child of 10 months, a 10-month-old child. You know how small a 10-month-old child? It's small. Left him in a sitting chair. It's like one of those play chairs where it has a little strip of fabric they sit in, and they have various toys, and they might have some food, a sippy cup or something to eat. She left him there. And you know what she did? She came back 12 days later, and of course the child was dead. It died of dehydration and lack of food. No water in your body for 12 days, no food. And on top of that, the gross part is she sat in her urine and fecal for those 12 days. No change of diapers or anything. There was maggots in her diapers. There was E. coli in her bloodstream. E. coli, which is very dangerous. And um, um, that is why we have CPS workers. I know that. And I'm just trying to tell you that they, they will not, it's a threat. Unless they have a court order, they can't take your children. You don't even have to let them in. You don't have to let them. They've gone too overboard. And they would run the risk of a very violent lawsuit, meaning a very heavy lawsuit. I don't think the police department want lawsuits right now. That is ridiculous that Richmond policemen in Kentucky don't care about your rights, your constitutional rights. And so what you all should do is have an attorney or phone number. You should have it for your whole life. And when you get involved, you just say you want to call you're allowed one phone call. You can call your attorney. And, they can arrest you and take you downtown or take you to the jail if you've been drunk or disorderly. Let's say you fired a gun, a weapon. It's for serious offenses. Now, Faye, I don't think your children were in serious danger or neglect or abuse. I think what they happen is that the CPS and the police are overzealous people, and they're trying to use that as wrong. But I am telling you out there are horror stories in CPS. There's a case where a father was upset with a child crying, so he threw his child against the wall to shut him up. That's horrible. So don't get me wrong that we don't need CPS or CPS is all bad. Yes, but what's happened is that it's the pendulum has swung. The pendulum from doing nothing to protect our children to doing something now has gone overboard. They're overreacting. In my case, they definitely are overreacting. There's no need to do what they did to me and my children or my wife. There's no reason. There was no reason. The things that were the problem in our life could be easily worked out. And some of the problems in our life were beyond my control. I lost my job at age 60, and it was through no choice of my own. The state of California was going bankrupt, and the governor of the state looked at ways to how to save money. And he said, well, there's a bunch of contractors that have public work jobs with us. We're going to write them IOUs and won't start those projects. Well, that's fine for the state to do that, but those are public funds. And at that time, I didn't have money to sue the state of California. So I had to close my general contracting, and I was unemployed at age 60. Now, how many people are out there want to hire a 60-year-old, very senior gentleman, very healthy, everything, that could do a lot for the company? They aren't. They're far and few. Right now, they're talking about our two candidates are too old to be president of the United States. We had someone sit there and say that parents have to be, not parents, old people have to be recertified. Recertified as what? There's nothing wrong with being old. There's nothing wrong with being young. I welcome young and old. You can learn from both. But our society's got to the point where it's too one-sided. It's too one-sided. So, um, all I can say is that say no. Yes, no answers. Be polite. Say yes, no. If they don't like it. I was watching a YouTube video of a policeman that came up and was going to arrest this guy, not arrest him, but give him a ticket for going too fast. I think he was going 69 in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. And the policeman, you can tell that's, usually they give you 10-mile over, but this guy wanted to get this guy for 3 miles. Maybe his quota was done. So the guy had his window halfway down. And the first thing out of the policeman's mouth was, please roll your window down. And the guy says, why? Is there a law that says I have to have my window down? I could talk to you finally. And so he was doing it for his own protection. The policeman was irritated by that. And the guy said, what law am I breaking? Again, what the guy was doing was edging the cop on. The cop is edging the guy on. See, all that talking, all the peripheral talking, that's a no-no. You have to learn in this world, and I really hate to say it, that it's a yes-no world with confrontational issues. Yes, no with confrontation. Your boss at work, he's pissed at you and just say yes. Say no. We can work on that. Do a timeout. A timeout is something that should be really used a lot in life. Not only timeout at your workplace, timeout with your home. You and your wife are screaming and yelling and putting each other down and making them feel really bad and really and you should do a timeout. I've been saying peace be with you and then do a timeout. That peace be with you, as I learned from the Catholic faith. And they have a saying in church, halfway through the church services, peace be with you, and you shake each other's hands. And maybe it breaks the ice. Maybe it does like that. But you need to do a timeout. You need to go for a walk somewhere. If you live near the beach, where I do, there's a beautiful beach to do a walk. You might be living near a park. But it's so important to practice timeouts. And then you come back and readdress the problem. But I see too much with confrontational issues with CPS workers, with police, and everything. It rises the feel, and they get angry. And if you already have a bad police officer, a bad police department, a bad judge, and a bad CPS, you certainly don't want to rile them up more. And that was my mistake because I did that. I went to the top director of CPS, who lived in a building that looked like Emerald City's Wizard of Oz. It was green, had fancy glass, fancy carpet. I mean, it was overdone. You could see where the money had come from. The money had come from money that was earmarked for our children. And so I told the director, I guess maybe I'm a little bit, I was trying to be abrasive like Donald Trump does that. He tells an ace is an ace. He says you're fired when he did The Apprentices. He said you're fired. And so he was very abrasive. And so I sometimes am like that with people, and I don't think that's the right way either. I think a timeout is what you should do. So don't let intimidation by policemen or child protection services. That agency is already corrupt. It's non-transparent. Did you know they have no accountability of the money that they take in? No one's watching them. There's no board of supervisors or board of directors. And on top of that, the CPS workers, mine was, are not even trained in social work. They don't even have any classes. They don't have a college degree. They don't have a license or a certificate. They don't even go through a mentor program where they have to learn for 10 years what it's like to work with cases, to do family reunification. They don't know what family reunification is. That's one of the steps that's mandated by law, that you protect your children from neglect and abuse, and you do family reunification. And family reunification means you take programs that can help you be a better parent, parenting classes. You take anger management programs. You see therapists. You see people that can help you, and that is what you know. That's what it should be like in there. But you're going to find out that CPS is not your friend. So get a attorney. And I say rule number one is you need an attorney. Without an attorney, you're going to be like me, very frustrated, writing emails for a year and a half, getting nowhere, and the case got worse and worse and worse. So now that you've been um, alleged brought against you, they usually try to take away your child right away when they come to your home. That is their SOP. They hear the allegations, they think the allegations are true. And the allegations, you know, um, are, uh, you know, you're guilty till you're proven innocent. With most courts of law or most incidents you get caught up, you're guilty till you're proven innocent. You're guilty till you're proven innocent. I mean, even in today's visible circles, they have Donald Trump guilty. And you probably think I'm a Donald Trump fan. I'm not. I want to bring it up because he's in the news 24/7. And they say he led the resurrection. He carried the American flag up the steps of the Capitol with all the Americans storming the Capitol building. No, that was a riot. It was a group of individuals that were so angry with maybe their frustrations in life, they're storming something. They want to make a change. They want to make a change. It's like a revolution. But that was a riot. That was not a resurrection. And, the 14th Amendment, by the way, helps you guys in social services. There's things there that are called constitutional rights, and they get violated. You should read the 14th Amendment. There's a lot of good stuff in there for you in your CPS case. You should read the 14th Amendment. It's really well worth the right there. Yes, it seems like everything in CPS is connected to everything in this world. The Child Protection Services is supposed to be a group of professionals that are knowledgeable, that want to get the family back together. There's been studies proven that the kids are more better with their biological parents than any other kind of parenting that they do. Biological parents are the number one choice. And if the biological parents did a hiccup, it can be corrected. Just because they're incarcerated and now out of prison, they've served their time, and maybe they'd want to do right, doesn't mean they're bad parents for kids. There's so many cases where they use history. It's even more sad because their kids are brought up in foster care. I was talking to one girl that she was at 14 put into foster care, and then when she was out and she started to have children, they're out to get her because she had foster care when she was 14. I mean, CPS is getting so ridiculous. I wish there could be changes. There are people that are trying to make changes. I know I was speaking to the person in Richmond, Kentucky. They have a group that wants to make changes. We need to get our Congress people involved. We need to get the representatives, the senators that represent us in each of our states to make changes. Only that can make things happen. As you notice, even with the changes they try to make, it becomes very difficult to make those changes. Um, the Some things in Congress just doesn't seem to go. But that's the way our government's set up. For all you people that are new to this country listening in, which I know there's a lot of you, because we have open borders, and I welcome you all there. But it's very important you take a government class. You learn how the legislative and the executive and the judiciary branches of our government works. That's why in high school it's required. Every high school you go to, anybody who goes to high school has to take U.S. government. And why? Because there's things that are going to be better they learn. So when they get into life, because you need to know. You need to know how our government works. You need to understand. The news is really great. It really shows you a lot. And I think this latest, whatever years they've done with Donald Trump, has really exposed a lot, which is great. I mean, he has 91 indictments. I mean, this whole thing is just a joke going on out there, and it's a shame because it gives them more publicity. It helps them be elected. I mean, if people not talk about things or talk about people, they get forgotten. But every minute, every day, there's this talk there, and there's a State Union address coming up there. Are they going to talk about CPS? Are they going to talk about our kids or our parents and things like that? No, they're going to be trying to change their views on things so they can become president. So, you know, uh, we have a real hard time with CPS. It's a beautiful concept to have an agency to protect our children, but it's being misused, mismanaged. There's no question. My case was ridiculous. My kids were stolen from me because it's a chain reaction I was going through. I was going through a perfect storm. In 2007, half of my retirement was lost. Why? Because, first of all, it was invested into stocks and bonds, and they were not maybe a good investment purposes, but there's something that was called a predatory loan was happening. And there was an entity countrywide, if you want to know, that gave away millions of predatory loans. And what a predatory loan is that they would qualify for a loan that you really couldn't pay off. And I was suckered in. I wanted this home. It's a beautiful home, and it would take me from a $225,000 home that was got about 300,000 more in equity, over 550, to a home that when it was first built was worth 400. That was $850,000, and so they qualified for me. And I still to this day couldn't understand why, but I did find out that they doubled my income. I said, "This is how much I made." The guy processed the loan lied and cheat. You know why? He was greedy. He wanted to get the bonuses. That's what killed everything. And again, it really hurt everybody. It hurt me and everything because when I found I had a predatory loan, I was wondering why it was so hard to make payments and so forth. I should have recognized something called a credit line. And when the credit line was given to me of $300,000, a mortgage of 650, that's $1 million you're looking at that you're in debt. Yes, my job was good. My job was good. But even at that job there, I was barely making ends meet. And I was always maxed out wondering why. And it's just, I wanted to better my family. And where I live in the richest part of the United States. It's near the beach. Of course, the beach, you're going to be paying premium in there. So where I live, you can't find a home for under $1 million. So I have no choice. My my home was lost in the end anyway. But I had the storm brewing, so not only did I lose half of my retirement to predatory loan, I had a predatory loan that was facing things. And then number three happened. That job I lost because the governor, the state of California, was going bankrupt, and they decided to take my public funds for my contracts and and gave gave me an IOU slip. Well, an IOU won't get you anything, by the way. It will not get you anything. All it did is get you with a lot of promises that never were fulfilled. So so I'm telling you this. As storm as a brood, the next nightmare was when I lost my job, and at age 60, I couldn't find it. Well, sad to say that the allegations started coming in soon after I lost my job. They were allegations made by lay people. They're my in laws. And for some strange reason, I should have recognized this. Again, I wanted to accept everybody. What? They were my wife's parents, and I did not know. From day one, they were trouble. They didn't want us to get married, and they wanted our children. And that is a bad thing that they did alienation. Alienation is against the law. You don't alienate a parent from their children. CPS does alienation. Not only do they do child trafficking, they do alienation, and they do brainwashing too. They're bad. They teach things that doesn't help out the kids, and it's very, very vindictive. And yes, it sounds horrible to talk bad about a public agency, but they need to grow up. They need to answer. They need to become what they're supposed to be. Protect children from abuse, protect children from neglect, and family reunification. Family reunification. Um, so with that being said, they for 5 years were constantly badgering me, and I should have got an attorney. I should have got an attorney. There was constantly false allegations I was disproving to them. They actually came to my home and I let them in. At that time, I had nothing to shame about my home. What got me though is when my mom and dad. That was when the storm sunk me, and my mom and dad. Um, my mom and dad were dying. You know, we all don't live forever, and it's a horrible thing when parents die. And of course, it doesn't come at the right opportunity. And I was without a job, unemployed, and I had put the family on a Spartan lifestyle, meaning that no sodas, no chips, no Disneyland passes, no entertainment, no traveling to other countries, no traveling to other states, we had done so much as a family, and suddenly I had to cut it all out. Why? Because I had this damn predatory loan I had to pay off. I had $5,000 a month that I had to make sure I have just for and I had cheap loans. I had a, um, a credit line of 3% and a first at 2%, and that was hard to pay when you don't have um, a job, and then your money that you put away got spent, got cut in half by retirement, and then money I had saved. I had it all saved for a rainy day, but it got up fast. I was only able to continue without a job for a couple years paying the mortgages. But it was a terrible lifestyle. Suddenly my family is being stressed, and they are being stressed. And they were used to a different lifestyle, and this new lifestyle wasn't there. And so there's a lot of stress going on in the family. But then I told my mom and dad, who I love dearly, that yeah, I'll help you liquidate your home and get your belongings to relatives and friends and so forth. So me and my daughter went up to get the belongings, bring them back, but I didn't have money for storage. They should have gone in storage. My mistake was I tried to put them in the front of my home. Well, that got me in trouble with the association because I live in a private neighborhood. You can't put things in front of your garages, even though they're covered with a tarp for any length of time. So I had to move them, into the garage, into the house, into the porch, into the yard. And it started becoming more of a clutter and a mess. And that's when the police duped me, or the social workers duped me to let them open up the house. Um, saw the belongings and said, "Oh, you neglect your children. Those boxes could fall on top of your children." I said, "How could they fall? First of all, they sleep upstairs, and those boxes don't have wings on them. They're only 3 boxes high, and the children are taller than the boxes. And there was safe walkways, but they didn't care, and they cared so bad. They said, 'This is extreme neglect. We need to take your children today. The children are coming with us.'" So they went to my school of my 2 other children, and my young child who I just picked up from school was taken. He was trembling. That children were put underneath a traumatic effect. They're put into a shelter, and that shelter was terrible. There's a block-like structure, and is right next to the juvenile prison, where you had juvenile kids with their own problems, next to the play yard where these shelter kids were going to be put in there. It was also next to the courts, the dependency courts. And so here was this shelter. We came to visit the kids at night where they were terrified. And they weren't being protected. There was a beehives outside that were attacking the kids and getting bee stung. So the play area was reduced. It was overcrowded. It was dirty. The food was terrible. And their idea of schooling was somebody reading a book or something. They had a very elementary form of schooling. They weren't going to take my children to their schools of origin. They're supposed to take them to your schools of origin. And my young son at 9 was taken to a beautiful elementary school. And, it had an open air effect of it. The walls were made out of glass so people like the principal could walk by and see her teachers performed. Parents could get special permission to come and sit and watch their kids. So it was a one-way glass. You could see in, but they couldn't see out. And so um, that was the elementary school. The middle school was older, but it was nice. And the private school where my son was going because he wanted to be a robotic engineer, he was in the STEM program. So they were taken from that environment. They're taken from a home that their bedrooms were clean, spotless, their own little private world. The house was huge. And it was really, really wrong. So it got worse. It got worse. Year after year, the complaints and the proving that they're wrong, and then finally they duped the policeman where he used a black and white to pull me over, and then see the detective, and then he ordered me to follow me. I should have said no. I should have said arrest me. I should have said no. I know now that I should have done things totally different. So they came into my home, and what was out front of my home greeting me were 3 social workers, 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 2 uniformed policemen, and a detective. Why were all these people necessary? What crime were they thinking? They wouldn't tell me the allegations. They wouldn't tell me what was going on. They said, "We have report of neglect and abuse," the very generalization. And they didn't have anything because they're hoping to go in there and find something. And they did. They found my parents' belongings, my boxes, my parents' mementos, the furniture that was stacked very nicely, very neat, and it would not fall over. So it was really a sad state of affairs to see these supposedly social workers that want to help you, or the police department. And not only on top of that, to the social workers, the police detective wanted to investigate something he could find out criminally. And so he had his own motive. Because why? Because I gave him such a hard time. See, that's a hard thing. You tell people where they're wrong and they retaliate. Professional people retaliate, and that's wrong. That was wrong. My civil rights and constitutional rights were so violated, I could have numerous lawsuits, but I didn't have money. It's hard, and that's another thing too. Money is really a hard thing. Now, Faye has said some other things here. I want to get out there. Um, Faye, who is from Richmond, Kentucky, said, "I got CPS called me, my kid missed the bus and he was 9.5 years old and was playing in the neighborhood and I had no idea. I thought he was at school." Well, yeah, kids are silly things. I remember going to summer school down in Southern California, and I didn't like the summer school I was in, so I hid in the bushes. You know, uh, I was taking a bus to school, but I didn't go in. So yes, I can understand that, and that's wrong, Faye. That is horrible. They your kid should have been maybe told that, if you miss the bus, you need to come home and get me right away so I can get you to school. Now she said furthermore, Faye said furthermore, um, uh, she said she had 4 foster kids murdered in a CP case the last couple of years. Boy, Faye, I wish you were on talking because it would have been nice to have you on this morning because you have a lot of information. I hope in the future you can be my guest again. Um, I don't know why the kids were murdered. That sounds terrible. But foster care has been a nightmare. My kids were in foster care and they were abused. They were abused. Foster care isn't what it meant to be. Foster care are made by CPS, it makes foster care. They really don't have a lot of good formal training. There are good foster care people, don't get me wrong, and foster care people that like to adopt children. And they find out that if they're involved with a CPS, the adoptions go quicker. Normally, adoptions can take 5 to 10 years, sometimes. So, um, it's a lot more screening process that goes. There's so many horror stories I hear about foster care. So, I look at our clock time. We're about 3 minutes left. And I know probably I didn't go over some of the forms I usually talk about, like the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1979. If there's any Indian parents listening in, if you have Indian children, you're registered or not registered by a federal tribe of the United States, you could have your kids handled by family members of the tribe, not the CPS workers. So look up the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1979. It tells you all about that. There's the 388 petition, which is a motion to enter into court to um, introduce new evidence to change your plan to show that you completed your classes. Anyway, it's a hearing that has to be held within 30 days. So it forces the judge to do something. You should know about 388. If you have an attorney, you can do that. There's the there's a lot of things you look online, and this particular show I maybe got on different tangents, but I hope that I answered everybody that texted in or has questions. Please get an attorney. Do not, please do that, rule number one. And I'm offering you a free consultation with Mr. Davis for 30 minutes for $49.99. All you do is call in 888-888-6582, which is the same number you call if you want to be a guest on the show for my podcast. So, um, I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you for your emotes. And Faye, it's so glad to have you back here with me because you add so much more. Hope you can talk again. It was nice to meet you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm glad you got your custody of your kids back. I'm so glad you took the time to tell me that. Um, so those are the people that we had on today. And so I want you all not to give up on your children. I want you to try your hardest, love your children, love your family, and I hope the new year has much success and happiness for you. Um, God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing off. And I'll see you tomorrow.